Welcome to Win with Richardson Richardson. What's important now? Success in business most often comes down to hard work, not by silver bullets and quick fixes. It's knowing where to focus that hard work that's key to winning. Join sales prospecting expert and 3-time seven-figure business founder Carrie Richardson and managing partner of R&R Consulting and former owner of Doberman Technologies Ian Richardson for radical honesty regarding strategic planning, accountability, and execution that will get you the systematic results you're working toward. Let's get into today's episode. Thought leader and your host, Carrie Richardson. Welcome to Win with Richardson Richardson. What's important now? Success in business most often comes down to hard work, not by silver bullets and quick fixes. It's knowing where to focus that hard work that's key to winning. Join sales prospecting expert and 3-time seven-figure business founder Carrie Richardson and managing partner of R&R Consulting and former owner of Doberman Technologies Ian Richardson for radical honesty regarding strategic planning, accountability, and execution that will get you the systematic results you're working toward. Let's get into today's episode. Thought leader and your host, Ian Richardson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Win. I'm Ian Richardson, your host, and I have a very near and dear friend of mine, Matt Lee. Matt, say hello, buddy.
Hey, buddy. Oh, you meant just in general. Hello. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you.
Matt, if you are unfamiliar with him, which means you have been under a rock in the cybersecurity space, Matt has dedicated the last 10 years to raising the security tide in the small business market. His efforts have served in every capacity, from growing a managed services company that grew to support 20,000 endpoints to now landing over at PAX 8 as the lead the tide for education and thought leadership on cybersecurity. That leadership around technology direction and security compliance has protected and elevated over 17,000 people in small to mid-sized businesses across 5 states. He's the Senior Director of Security and Compliance at PAX 8. Through that role, he's driving thought leadership to make sure the rest of the IT service provider community continue to grow in both their knowledge and ability to execute on raising and implementing and monitoring, protecting cybersecurity. His purpose, to ensure his children maintain the same quality of life we do around technology, which is imperiled daily by threat actors. Matt, buddy, I feel like I just said a whole bunch, but walk us through that. Your quote-unquote founder story is different than a lot of people we have on Win. Walk me through, like, what's driving this passion around your kids and around everyone's children to make sure that they have the same quality of life around technology. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so, I was at an MSP that grew and grew and grew, and we started out in kind of a compliance-based market and in a lot of the area we were in. So, 800, 171, those things. But as we transitioned and merged to become a much larger company, we had our own kind of event at that company, and it was brutal, and it taught me the post-traumatic stress disorder. And we had people that left our employment, we had people that left as clients, and this was all through an acquisition that drove that. And so as we went on, though, that fueled this understanding of a need for incident response and a need to understand, what was attacking, what was our risk. And as we've now seen, over the last 2 or 3 years, even, we know exactly what that risk is. And I sat in front of 67 separate named events and incidents throughout the tenure of my time there, along with other members of the security committee and members of our executive leadership. And it was one of those things where I just realized that I have this theory, and you'll maybe hear me talk about it later, but a product never rises much above or below the maturity of the consuming entity, right? And so as you see this, you have this situation where, just like the Industrial Revolution, we've built a lot of what we live on on sand. We've made a lot of things that were made. I've had executives say to me, Matt, a lot of money is made on crappy software. It wasn't the term that was used, but it was worse, right?
Might
And
have
the
been
problem
more
is,
of an alliteration there.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it would had S's in it for sure. And the point was that he was serious about it, and you'd have these real understandings of the vulnerabilities that exist, and if they had in your house and you had people selling you locks that you knew did not work or wouldn't lock, or windows that or window breaks that didn't work, or alarm systems that didn't actually function, you would have people have enough maturity to say, I need to expect this quality. We're starting to get there in the software world, but unfortunately you have that combining with people's native need to trust. The first reason we ever sat around a campfire, Ian, is because we had to have this built-in trust of other humans, or else we would have never become communities. We'd have never grown families. We'd have never done those things. So we're wired that way mentally and at a very deep level. So the challenge is you put those two together and you have a lot of money to make. There's a lot of siphoning out of our general public that destroys kind of the vision that, the first time I ever touched Angry Birds as a middle adult, let's just say, dude, bro, that was just so amazing to me that it just worked. But that's the experience. And it was a virgin experience. And we won't see it if we continue to degrade the security and the belief and trust in our own privacy and our own data, our own financials, all of the above. And so that's what drives me. And I think that as a practitioner at an MSP, I could serve those 15,000, 17,000 humans and 20,000 devices, right? I could drive that inside our organization. I could help the 170 families that worked with us. But now I can educate 15,000 MSPs with a reach of millions and millions and millions of seats, and shape things around policy and shape things around education. So, that's kind of my origin story. But, it started with a massive ransomware event that was very painful and lasted for 18 months, and spent most of my stress load dealing with. And now I participate and give back around that. I'm on a vendor response committee for incident response you'll hear about in August, and a few other things. But yeah, man. Long-winded as well. Loquacious is certainly within the accusations.
No, when Matt Lee speaks, I always stop and listen. So
Thank you, brother.
a couple of key takeaways right there, man. If we don't change the way that this trend is going, we won't have enough vulnerability as a society to sit around the proverbial cybersecurity campfire. We won't have the ability to sit down through technology and build that trust, build that relationship, because we'll all be too damn scared to do it.
Yep.
That's a key takeaway. And then the other one, man, what just goes right down to my core, right down to my soul. When I went through my Patterson life plan, one of the big bubble up resonant items was, Ian, what is your purpose? And the purpose that I have is, if I can help enough people in enough different ways that the world's materially a better place. That's legacy to me. That's there. And it sounds like our legacy statements are right in lockstep in a line, buddy, which that's the soul always knows.
Yep, 100%, brother.
So on Win, we always dive into three big topics, and one of them, when we spoke on our prep call, which was yesterday, everyone. That's how quick we're turning around this podcast. Was you had mentioned that when you were making the decision to leave the MSP that you were at and move on to your next step in your adventure to kind of pursue that legacy, you wanted to be able to maintain the persona of Matt Lee. You wanted to be able to have your unique voice while being able to grow and educate the managed IT space. You needed to be able to find someone, an organization, a group of people that would recognize and honor that need. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about how you tackled that challenge.
What's funny is you talked about your Patterson life plan. I went through, a similar life plan with HTG, through them. And it was something that at the time I didn't understand the value of it, right? I was a younger man. I didn't fully believe it. I kind of did. I understood the recharge cycle. I understood some of those things. But one thing that really stuck with me was this HABU, this concept of highest and best use. And it came out of this understanding of I try not to be selfish. There's a lot of things in life that you have to be selfish about, but in general, I try not to be selfish. I try to give more than I take. That's kind of my life ethos I want to leave people with, right? And so when I started thinking this HABU, it was this I really loved being an engineer. I really liked doing projects. I was very good at them. I was very good at saving the day. I got to feel like a hero in a direct response, right? Like I literally got to have people go, Matt, you just saved us. Like, and that's very rewarding to me, that one-to-one exchange. But,
Turn in the wrench.
Yeah, man. And that's where, my happiest reward center is personally. That said, I understood this concept of giving back and more than you take. And this Habu concept says, find what your highest and best use is, whether that be to an organization, to fulfill a need, to whatever it may be. And so you have this unfortunate collision of this like planting of that seed in my head. And now, wait a minute, I have a voice to be able to deliver education, to be able to deliver, hell, just sometimes picking somebody up, patting them on the back and telling them get back in the damn game, right? But that role. And I realized that the highest and best use would be to be able to do that for every MSP or every small to mid-sized business I can educate. And so as you drive that, that's a common goal. As I educate an SMB, they work better with their MSP. As the MSP has people work better with them, they get better at the processes because they have the funding and the people in alignment to do it. And so for me, it's about, meeting that Habu. And so when you talk about, like, I had this vision, and it was somewhat one-eyed, right? You know me, I got to throw in an eye joke every now and again. But, I had this vision of driving forward with, kind of a thought leadership, and I hate self-ascribing it, which I'm a student, right? And I honestly constantly just want to learn and give back and help contextualize and make analogies for to help people understand cybersecurity is more than just tools, and to help people through their journey in the way that I went through it. And so I asked for people to give me the leeway to partner with people that would not make business sense sometimes, that would not be things that drive towards marching towards this mission of our own. And while I think that's valuable, I feel like you have this greater community need that Ken Patterson lives in his heart, that, is this drive towards like being able to give back and have no direct immediate impact, but you have this indirect impact of, as you educate and as you drive people to increase their maturity level, the requirements of driving that bar up means that hopefully you're both rising together, which goes into my rising the tides concept, right? You're hoping those companies are floating that boat as the maturity goes up, and as the level of that product has to go up, you hope that the product is. And so I wanted to find a company that allowed me to have both sides of that, where I believed genuinely in my heart that they would go through their own security evolution, but also that they would allow me to just collaborate and do and give and pay for it in a lot of ways. Thank you, Pax8. And the point is that I pitched that to a lot of different ones, and everybody had a different vision of consumption of that. Where I ended up landing at Pax8 almost allowed me my vision, which means I can sink or fail on my own and see if it adds value. And that's very tough because you don't have a lot of like validation factors. There's not an immediate SKU sale. There's not a, return on investment or marketing eyes or emails gathered or nope. I just collaborate. I just spend time with MSPs. I speak for MSPs at their events. I go and do industry things. I participate in different community boards, right? Like, I'm on the CSA Zero Trust Advisory Board. I'm writing the documentation for that test. And so I just get to live that life. Like it literally is, the perfect role, and a company that gives me the leeway to do it in a way that I think they just genuinely care enough about the community that it's worth it to them to take a poke at it. And here we are at a year almost. Yep. So, yeah, sorry. I can get going, but.
Well, no. That's you kind of what I heard there was a couple of different captures on there, that you've got this. Not only was there the challenge of, hey, how can I keep my voice? But while tackling that challenge, you also were able to capture an achievement around forcing vendors, the space, the service providers, and tangentially or in an indirect way, the end users, to gain more maturity and to get them to become innovative in their approach to cybersecurity, to start viewing cybersecurity more as a strategy, to become
and as a business function, right? Yeah, and to make this something where you can't keep ignoring it. It's more and more. Yeah, and you've got it, and you always capture me well in that statement, so I'll shut up. But like, here's the lawnmower back. I apologize. You got this, Ro.
The longboard surfing reference. Oh, that's I was surfing down in PVR one of the first times I was surfing, and I had a massive 9-foot longboard. When people saw
Nice.
me coming on that, they got the hell out of the
Oh
way.
yeah. Yeah, that's
Now,
a headache waiting to happen. Oh, that's
people run
funny.
me over. So
Yeah.
challenges that turned into achievement. That's some of my favorite story. One of the key items that we always like to talk through is around an opportunity. And you and I, we met for maybe 45 an hour yesterday, and I would say about half of that was talked about shifting of mindset. That there is a fundamental opportunity for every entrepreneur in the world right now, and it could even apply to an existing business if they're brave enough, if they've
Yeah,
got
man.
the gumption, if they're willing to jump off of a proverbial and very real cliff around cloud and security.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. Talk to this opportunity that you see and that you're helping people capture if they're willing to take the step.
Well, I'll do it with a couple of stories as I'm one to do. Right. So the first one is around, we had a marketing person who she had her master's in marketing from a prestigious marketing school. She had come on board because she was kind of forced to by her father. No, I tease, but definitely related to Chris Hoos. And, she came on and it was funny. We were chatting one day during a call that was prepping for a meeting. And she said, I had this internship that was horrible last year. I'm so glad I'm here and this technology works the way it does. I said, wait a minute, you just grabbed my interest. Help me understand. What was it about the technology? She said, well, I had this V drive thing and I had a VPN that I had to connect. And I said, well, wait a minute, hold on. And it dawned on me through a little bit of back and forth that since middle school, she had been on Google Drive and Google Chromebooks. Since high school and college, she was on Microsoft products and consumed everything through SharePoint and through school systems that were using those systems. And the identity was tied to it. And so you had this world where the technologists that are coming out of college that are going to be your desired candidates, the ones you love and want to hire, are going to take a step back in time to use your technology. So there's the first point. The second story that goes along with that is if you closed your eyes and dreamed and said, okay, I'm going to start a company tomorrow. Let's call it R&R, Robertson and Robertson Consulting, let's call it, right? If you were going to start this company, would you buy a server? Would you put it in your closet? Would you go to a data colo or an IaaS provider and start up a server, an Active Directory and all? Would you go to Azure and run servers and host an infrastructural based application? No. You probably bind straight to Azure Active Directory. You might have an independent IDP before that, like Okta or somebody like that. But then you're going to bolt that in, hopefully with single sign-on and a very, very low number of passwords, into SaaS-based applications with shared responsibility models and data sets that you need to start pushing those vendors to be better and better about helping you meet. But ultimately, if you take those two concepts together, it means that if your competitor starts tomorrow, they're going to be more agile, able to attract talent, have better technology, be able to more secure it. Now, granted, there are people that will listen to this that would argue me to the death that going cloud has its, it's not perfect. Granted, every system security plan has a system security plan, but I'll take that over architectural, infrastructural death and delay and decay of tech debt. They both have their own enemies. They both have their own challenges. But the point is that if you take that, then from a business perspective, you take a lot of the plate spinning of what MSPs have done, the things that we did that were, I'll reboot your server, I'll do your update, we'll get your schema update. That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. You might have some rework of IAM, you might have some different conditional access things, but those are quite centric. And so you work at this towards, in a final stage, the companies that start that way, I hypothesize, will be able to attract the talent, will be faster and will be better and more profitable. And then you can focus as an MSP on those customers with a script. It just changes the GUID of the tenant ID and the secret I'm using for the application. Those are scriptable delineations. Look at CIPP or some of those things. But the point is that now if we're going to succeed, we actually have to be consultants. We have to start teaching someone to use the same hockey stick, the same puck, the same pads to beat the other team? How does one win the Stanley Cup? It's because they have better coaching, they have a better plan, they have better. So our job becomes that, right? Which I know is very good to Robertson and Robertson Consulting over there, but and I know it's Richardson. I'm being facetious there,
he's taking, robbing my marketing capacity.
I am. I feel terrible.
I have to say Richardson and Richardson Consulting, so then I can steal that out of this podcast and use it in all sorts of.
Oh, I try. Ways.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll say it. Richardson and Richardson Consulting. Boy, that was butchered. Richardson and Richardson Consulting, are that kind of a model, right? Where you could be coaching people on business outcomes, on the growth of their marketing, on the strength of their product, on the use of their technology in ways that MSPs wouldn't have considered themselves part of that table in the past. But on the second front, the next opportunity that comes hand in hand with this is this raw of an understanding of I can buy all the cloud pieces, but if I don't bolt them together correctly, they still don't help me and aid my security plan. And so a lot of the things that'll come from this is the growth in MSPs delivering, or TSP, XSP, whatever the hell you want to call it, delivering security services and business consultation towards driving success and growth while also securing it. That's pretty much what the technology arm of MSPs is going to deliver. And if you took that forward, you could imagine a different human they might hire. If you're dealing with one very homogenic, set of everybody's on AAD, I have 400 customers, they're all Azure Active Directory, they all use one of 42 main applications, Salesforce, this line of business app, that line of business app. You now can have very robust procedures and processes that are very scalable, that don't take the same, quality of technical delivery. But then you have a couple of engineers that help work through that as those companies change, as their bolt-ins change, as they now offer SCIM or they switch to, OAuth instead of, SAML or those kind of things as that changes. But you can go hire a lot of Ian Richardson type people to go have conversations about business, right, and drive that. And so the opportunity, I think, is this shift in we've always wanted to be the CPA. We've always wanted to be the attorney. We've always wanted to be, right, those trusted advisors in that space. And this is, I think, our grand opportunity to start behaving like that and start giving that. Yeah.
So what I hear there's an opportunity. There's two big opportunities. One which you absolutely hammered on the head for the business that's willing to take the leap. You can gain back the nimbleness of your youth, where you're able to rapidly pivot, rapidly shift because you are not dragged down by a technology anchor.
Yep.
But even, and I would posit that this one might be even a bigger opportunity is the fact that if you're focused in on it, if your eye's on the ball, you can, as a business today, you can have a blue ocean opportunity where by embracing cloud, embracing security as your core strategy, you're able to run faster, jump higher, hit harder than your competition because you don't have that disconnect, and it allows you to shift the conversation. And so as a managed IT company, you can shift the conversation because you can now hire paralegals, to use the industry speak from legal. You can have the lower level technical talent do 95% of the doing. And then instead you can go have a consultative relationship with someone on their business objectives, their business goals, and truly have a seat at the quote unquote grown-ups table with the attorneys, with the CPAs, with the financial advisors who are really delivering that high impact value that an entrepreneur and a business owner values, where they will never value, hey, my computer turned on and worked. That's just hey, my lights worked when I turned on the switch.
Yeah, no, totally. And that is a commoditization. If you look back, there was a book that was written that kind of compares in the Industrial Revolution, you had to have a electricity plant manager, the person that managed the electricity coming into your plant for your sewing machines that were going to run on that. Like legitimately, that was a role. But now it's three-phase power. It's going to come in 110, 110, 110. We put it back together. We have this much fuse amperage. Like it's just designed, right? It's commoditized in a lot of ways. I like the fact that you touched on financial advisors, though, because I think that's one of the other missing components when it comes to why this is an opportunity before it's a risk, right? And I think the point is that as an MSP, if you start realizing that we have to have some barrier to entry to be a professional service, and as the United States government and other governments in the Five Eyes community, and especially as you see this kind of globally, start to realize that this is a real challenge, just like we had to make roads that had lines in the middle that were the same space, and we had to have the right road signs and things that all worked everywhere. We had to have, you have this kind of like need to start figuring out and managing this. But FINRA is a great example of how we could accomplish this, right? In the sense that, FINRA is a self-regulatory agency. It actually has this idea and concept of agents as well as the agencies that do business under that, right? You have a registered investment advisor or a broker-dealer, and then you have a broker. And Ian can lose his license, and the broker-dealer can lose their license. And you start getting into a world where you should start getting ahead of this transition and understanding how to deliver these other functions inside your world and reducing the chaos of the current infrastructural space, because it'll allow you to be ready as those regulations and changes start to occur. You'll already have those very scalable processes in place that work and meet that need. So, I like the comparison. FINRA did this. We can do this ourselves in the MSP and have a self-regulatory model where we ultimately are kind of in control of more of our own destiny and set those standards as we raise. And I think getting ahead of that helps, is my point. So.
Much better to instill the regulation that we want and need versus to have regulation dictated by people who think that the internet is a series of tubes. To coin the phrase.
That's awesome.
Everyone, this is Matt Lee. You can learn more about Matt Lee by going to cybermattlee.com. And while you're there, if you're looking between now and November of 2022, you can also fund the removal of the beard on Matt Lee's face and do quite a bit of good for charity. So this is a big call out. You're going to hear these on every single Win podcast from now until that happens. But
thank you.
Get out there, donate, do some good in the world. Matt, really appreciate you being a guest on here. You can connect with Matt on LinkedIn, go to the website, have all types of information. If you have any type of question about cybersecurity at all, this is the man you should be talking to. Matt, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you being here on Win. You can see more Win episodes at r&r.consulting. You can connect with me or Carrie on LinkedIn. I'm Ian Richardson, your host, and as always, thanks for joining us on Win. Matt, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
You've been listening to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? We're so glad you've joined us and know you're one step closer to winning big in your business too. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to connect@rnr.consulting. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll easily know when new episodes are available. Until next time, you can win, and we're here to help. You've been listening to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? We're so glad you've joined us and know you're one step closer to winning big in your business too. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to connect@rnr.consulting. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll easily know when new episodes are available. Until next time, you can win, and we're here to help.